Recently, I've had a lot of requests asking how I control my army. I figured I'd do a quick video on that. We're going to take a fairly easy battle. There's nothing too difficult about it, but it's a great way to showcase all the things that I do. One of the most important things is how to set up your army in the very beginning. I generally like to reserve the first 4, sometimes 5 units to break apart for my infantry, but it really just depends on how you want to do it. So we need to switch the formation. These will all be infantry. And in this case, we do have some shock troops right here with the two-handers that we really want to isolate and get them in their own unit. So the way we do that, we're going to create a filter here for shielded troops that also have throwing weapons. These specific shock troops do not have either of those. So we're going to create these 4 formations with that filter. And then the final filter, we're going to use heavy armor because these guys are armored to the teeth. Now what we need to do is give this unit some troops. So we use the slider. And it's really hard to tell what's going on there. So what I do is I go to an empty patch of land. I press unit 5 and I click them right here in a nice tight group. Now you'll notice as we move the slider, it's going to start adding more and more people. We're going to keep adding until we start getting a few shield troops. So you see right here, a few just finally popped in. So these guys do not belong. We could min-max it and try and slide it back and forth. You're always going to get a tiny mix of other units that you don't want in there. It's just the way it is. But having 3 shields in there is not a big deal. So we're going to go ahead and lock this in place. And if you really want to, you can find a commander within your army that has captain perks for two-handed skill. In this case, this guy has strong grip. So we'll go ahead and assign him. Now we'll put him off to the side. And again, I'm using 4 groups of infantry. You don't have to do that. This is a little bit more complicated than most people like to use. It just really depends on what you want to do. So we can make them all even if you want. So something like that, we'd have 4 even groups that allow us to maneuver pretty easily. Sometimes I like to load up the sides with less units just so they can block the cavalry on the flank and then keep the bulk of our troops in the middle. But in this case, we'll just keep them even, make it easier. And again, you can assign captains if you really want to. In this case, we'll do that. And then for the cavalry, in this case, we don't really have a whole lot of cav, so we'll use our main character to lead them. We don't have any horse archers, so I just put them both in one group, make it easier. Now, one question I got a lot is how do you make your formation a different shape? You know, more ranks, less ranks, thicker, etc. So what you want to do is you want to select your unit. You want to click the part where you want your formation to start, and then you hold and drag. So you notice right here these little green flags. This tells you where the formation will end. So you click to start it, and then you drag to end. In this case, it's probably a good idea to have them go maybe 2 or 3 ranks deep. So in this case, this is 2 ranks deep. And if we go further, it'll start thinning it out into 1 rank deep. Let's say we want it a little thicker. We can go 3 ranks deep. We just go closer. And then once you see them start to peel away, notice how there's only 2 flags in the front, and the 3rd flag is starting to fall behind, so we'll pull it back. So now we'll get 3. Now obviously in this case the formation's messed up. Sometimes that happens, and that's primarily because we have a captain in there. So if we get rid of the captain and we redo the formation, it's going to be exactly what it says it's going to be. And it's kind of annoying because you do have to go into the battle to fix this. I'll show you how to do that right now. But first, let's get our line set up into roughly what we want it to be. Now, one thing that might be easier for you to do is just to select all the formations that you want in your shield wall. You can hold control and click them. I don't know what it is on console, but I believe there's a command to do that as well. And then you can do the same thing. You click where you want it to start, you drag it to where you want it to end, and it'll pull them all out in a nice neat line. You don't have to go in and place them each one by one. We have a very, very small token force of archers. So in this case, we're not really going to be using them. Don't really care. And we are going to have to deal with cavalry on our flank. So let's go ahead and put our cav on the left flank so we can counter that. Our main troop, these are the main focus of our army is the shock troops. So we keep them in reserve, nice and safe. I'm going to be doing some of this from the top-down view. This is with a mod called RTS mod. So first we have the enemy that's got a lot of cavalry. So they're going to be rushing us pretty quick. We need to get set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select all the troops that we want to move. This is our front line. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to go ahead and move them up. And again, same thing. You click where you want them to go, and then you drag until you want the formation to stop. And then we're going to place our shock troops right behind them, and we're going to move the cavalry up here on the left. Now, I find the cavalry to be a little bit better performance when you keep them nice and grouped, like in a big square, versus other cavalry. Versus infantry, you generally want to have your line as long as you can, so that it at least matches the length of the infantry that you're fighting. So here come the cav. We're just going to swing them around the back. And again, I'm just clicking. I'm not giving them charge command because they do terribly. When you give them the charge command, they'll get really distracted. Once the formation starts to touch, then I'll usually give them the charge command. And then once they start getting out, we want to pull them back. So we just pull them back. It's not a big deal. Now let's get our infantry into a better spot here. We'll keep our shock troops nice and centered. And actually their formation is a little bit here on the left, slightly skewed to the left. So let's go ahead and rotate it. And again, we're going to get our shock troops right in the smack in the middle. We'll keep our cavalry on the left so that we can screen them. Now here's where things start to get a little bit hectic. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the game. We're going to want to create a nice little separation here in the middle so that we can squeeze these troops through. And the easiest way to do that is similar to what we were doing before. We want to select both of these groups on the left. So we're going to hold control. We're going to press 1 and 2, and that's going to select both of them. And then what we can do is we can have them slide to the right, and we're going to do the same thing with the right. Press 3, hold control, drag them out a little bit as well. We'll get our shock troops right here in the middle. And we also need to direct our cavalry. Let's go ahead and get the cavalry in the back line. We want to start dealing with their archers. So group 8, we click them over here, and again, I don't want to give them a charge command. They're going to go nuts. So once they meet the line, so they're there, we can give them the charge command now. I don't like to give the charge command unless they're already touching the formation that I want them to attack. Otherwise, they get a little wonky. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get these guys fanned out, get them past. We give them the move order, and then we give the charge command. Notice how once we give the charge command, they split. If I gave them the charge command back here, they would just run into our own troops. Totally waste of space, right? So we don't want to do that. Now, notice over here, this guy's not really engaged. This is group 1. And actually, I'm going to pause it here just to explain something. If you're having trouble on the battlefield because things happen so fast, it makes it easy if you just standardize what you do. So for example, I always use 1, 2, 3, and 4 for my infantry, and I always make sure that they're in the exact same order every single fight. So I start with group 1 all the way on the left, group 2 is center left, group 3 is center right, and group 4 is always right flank. And then group 5 is always the reserve in the back. Group 7 and 8, if I have horse archers, I'll have them in 8, and then 7 will be melee cav. But generally, I try not to get too complicated, and I'll usually just have either of the two. So I'll have all horse archers or all melee cav. In this case, group 8 is always going to be my cav. So if I need to get my cav, I automatically know I just go right to 8, no matter what kind of army. Even if I only have 2 groups or 3 groups, I will automatically put them at 8 so that my muscle memory knows to hit 8. So try and standardize where you put your troops. I know default in the base game, your melee troops on foot are 1, your archers are 2, your melee cav is 3, horse archers 4, etc., etc. If you're gonna try and use more complex formations, it's gonna really throw you off if you change it up every campaign or every battle. So try to make it standardized across each one so you automatically know what is what and keep them in the same order so you know where they are. So let's get back to it. Now, one thing I've noticed is our cav have gone a little bit off the rocker here. We've got 60 left, so let's manually control them and tell them to come back here again. So have them come right back. And then also, I forgot, these guys are not really doing anything, so let's go ahead and envelop this left flank. And it looks like the right flank is sort of doing the same thing. So again, we're going to go ahead and push them up into the ranged troops. And what we're going to do is we're going to select 1, 2, 3, 4 with the control button held down. Let's just give everybody a general charge command, because I think at this point we're in a good enough spot where we can afford to do that. Same thing with the cav. Actually, I left the cav there alone. They got queued up. I should have probably given them a charge command a lot sooner. I struggle commanding cavalry because they tend to sit idly or they charge the stuff that I don't want them to charge. So I do struggle with that, but that's just something that even if you're pretty good at the game, there's always a lot of things that you can improve on. So it looks like our left flank is absolutely destroying them. No big deal. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and give the move order. Group 1 and Group 2 can go back there, and I want them to straight go back to the archers because they're going to be the ones causing the most pain for us. And then part of the shock troops that finished up on the left side are now joining the right, so this should be very easy for that one Group 3 to handle. Archers are getting chewed up by our Group 4. These guys are close enough. I feel good about giving them the charge command. They should be... If you give the charge command too far back, like for example, when they were back here, they would start to filter over here and go after the melee troops. So I like to give the move command, and then when they get close to the unit you want them to attack, then give them the charge command. So they're pretty much in free flight at this point. They've got some reinforcements coming, but it shouldn't be a big deal. So if we just let them freely chase them down, they'll be attacking them piecemeal, and we want to make sure that we have a united front. So for now, it's not a big deal. Let them roam around. Our cav are getting nice picks. No big deal. Once we start getting closer to the reinforcements, we're going to want to consolidate it again. And we're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4 again. Let's actually just do it right now. Let's consolidate. We'll take the hill. Group 5 can stay back here. And let's pull the cav back. The cav are the worst defenders. They're probably over there running through that gigantic shield wall. We don't want them to do that. We can tell them to harass these guys a little bit. Just give them a move command. But don't give them the charge command because then they'll end up in this giant shield wall, which we definitely don't want to have happen. So we're starting to consolidate. We're not quite there yet. Let's wait for everybody to get in. One thing, if your guys are moving really slowly, select them all. F2 and then F1 moves them into line formation. Moving in shield wall is very, very slow. So generally you want to fight in shield wall, but you want to move in line formation with your foot troops anyways. So Cav have pretty much cleaned up most of what's out there. I don't think we really want to micro that. It's not worth our time. So we'll pull them back. And we're pretty much in position here. We can approach, or it looks like they're pushing into us. Obviously, if they're doing that, it's an easy decision. We're just going to let them do it because we can maintain the high ground here. We're going to go ahead and select group 1 and 2 with control. We're going to give them... We hit a tree there. That's why that formation got messed up. So we'll go ahead and manually move them. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. If you have somebody mounted like that doesn't really belong, and it's going to mess up your formation, you can select that group and press F5. That's going to dismount them. So now that one horse is the reason why everything was getting messed up. So now we can move him, and it actually does what it's supposed to do. So let's go ahead and move everybody again. So that's group 2 and 3. Group 1 and 2 are already in position. These guys are in a good spot. We'll just shield wall. We'll leave little gaps. Actually, we probably don't want to leave little gaps. So let's go ahead and redo that. And see, notice they've got a cav in this one. That's why the formation looks all wonky when you try and drag it out. So we're going to go ahead and dismount that guy. Now it looks much better. Much, much better. All right, group 3 and 4, we're going to have them pull this flank. Actually, group 4, we want to have them braced for impact because they're going to get charged by cav, so that's not a big deal. All right, group 3 needs to go into shield wall, so that's a F2, F2. Let's go ahead and move our shock troops up. It looks like the bulk of their troops are right here. So we're probably going to want to deal with that. Cavalry are going to go in the back. So again, we're going to get cavalry the move order, not the charge command, the move order. And these foot troops are not engaged. I don't know. Actually, we can just send the foot troops back. Let's get shock troops. I think we'll wave the shock troops more on the left side, and then we'll give the charge command. So hopefully more of them go to this side, because that seems to be where the biggest fight is. They'll split off a little bit each way. So again, this works pretty well. Cav are in position. We can charge them. Group 4 is starting to reach the archer line, so they're just going to completely decimate them. And group 1 and 2 are engaged. Group 3 is engaged. Our shock troops, group 5, are engaged. Everybody's in good shape. At a point like this, there's not a whole lot of maneuvers we need to do. And in fact, if you mess with them, you'll end up doing worse than if you just left them to it. We'll come back when there's something that needs to be done. Now, one thing interesting to note, this is group 4. These are the shield troops that we had roll up the right flank. What we can do is we can actually shield wall them. We can give them a nice thick formation, have them group up. Shield wall works wonders when you're fighting melee. They don't kill as fast, but they lose significantly less troops. So they're way better on defense, and their offense is still acceptable. So that's why I generally like to use shield wall. It gives you more time to maneuver as well. So what we'll do is we'll just slowly creep these guys along, give them the move command all the way down there. Hopefully they'll destroy everybody along the way. So our shock troops are free. They're going to be joining, so we can, again, give them the charge command. Group 3 is free. And in fact, let's just give everybody the line formation charge. And we have archers that haven't even shot a single arrow. They shot a few, actually. Probably a roaming cav. We completely forgot about our archers. But like I said, if you stay nice and cool, you use your formations well, you don't do what I did and forget about your cavalry in the middle of the enemy formation, then you'll do pretty well. So you can see, like I said, this wasn't a terribly difficult battle, but because we commanded the way that we did, I feel like we did better than if we just charged everybody straight in. If you get to the end of the battle, or if you need to move troops around, like let's say one of these groups is really lean. So for example, group 4 is taking heavy losses. Group 1 has a lot of troops. So we're going to select group 1. We press F3, F5, and then we're going to go select group 4, and then we can use the slider to slide some of these troops over. Let's go ahead and give them about 20 troops. So now we have 56 and 48. So now that regiment is reinforced. They're not going to get completely wiped out. So you can do that. You can also, if let's say we are towards the end and we just want to group everybody up, we can select everybody, F3, F5, and then move them all to a single formation. Yeah, so now everybody's in group 1. Now we just have one giant death mob. All right, so that's it. I hope this was informative. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them as best I can in the comments. And I'll see you guys on the next one.